Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today for the Match Day Bulletin, I'm delighted to be joined once again by my comrade Lawrence Conley. How are you, Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. Really looking forward to this game. 3 points here, God willing, and hopefully another good performance.
Yes.
Interesting lineup.
It is. We'll run through that. But before we do that, I'm loving the 90s kind of vintage terrace clobber, the Sergio Tacchini, and green, white and gold, no less as well, Lawrence. We're also keen to get everybody's comments in on the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, get your comments in and tell us what you think of the lineup. Tell us what you think of today's outcome. What's happened to St Johnstone this season, after last season, Lawrence?
Oh, mate, I mean, Scotland's most successful team last season, weren't they? Certainly, the Alan McCann's went, big miss for them. But I know they get beat the previous game, but they'll be looking to kind of get right back on the horse, won't they? I don't think they're going to be pushovers. It's, Cam Davidson, I don't know if he was manager of the year last year for winning 2 trophies, but, he'd have been, certainly should have been in the running for it, or I voted for him. But,
yeah. Got my vote.
Yeah. I don't know if mine and your vote count for much, but no, I mean, they're a decent team, aren't they? It's, Stevie May's not been as prolific as his first season. Howden's really quick, so we need to watch out for that, because I don't think any of our centre backs are the quickest, especially in the turn. So, I think they'll give us a decent game.
Well, this is a thing, regardless of the fact that compared to last season, they haven't been hitting the heights of that term. Did we expect them to, particularly after losing a couple of their key players? Probably not. But the last, if you look at the form guide, the last 5 games domestically, or in the league rather, lost one. Not the best record. They are sitting 8th in the table at the moment. Celtic have climbed up to 4th. And as you say, we are starting to string the results together, Lawrence. We were watching with interest the game, the other night, automatically the other afternoon on Tuesday, where we've gone out, and I asked the question during the week, was it our most complete performance under Ange? Because I know we've had these games at home where it's been the rip-roaring Celtic that we've been told by Ange we're going to be getting that, the entertaining football. But what I meant by that is we managed the game better. It was a more complete performance. It didn't maybe reach the heights of a 6-0, but in Europe, we managed the game. We won 2-0. It could have been more.
Yeah, listen, the level of opposition was definitely against anything I think of. We've beat 5 or 6-0 against most of the kind of Premiership. We managed the game better, probably because we've now got more options, haven't we? We're getting people back fit. He's got the options where he can make changes. The defence is getting a wee bit more settled. So I'd agree with you. It's probably, a best performance to date at home.
It was satisfying because we've mismanaged games in Europe so often, Lawrence, right? And this season, again, there was a wee bit of criticism around the Betis game away from home because we had done so well to get ahead in that game. Then, obviously, we kind of threw it away, and then there was a last 15-minute charge kind of led by Tony Ralston. And, you look at the scoreline, you think, wow, what a game it was. But you felt we probably should have got more from that. There's somebody chapping the window behind you there, Lawrence, making a guest appearance. But talking of guest appearances, underneath that vintage Sergio Tacchini tracksuit top, I do believe you've got a wee bit of the old ACSOM merch on the go there.
But even further back, the 50 Shamrock top.
It's the 50 Shamrock top, known as...
This is the first team top replica, though.
Yes, you're right. You're right, because the reserve team had one glaring difference, which was...
White collar instead of green.
White collar.
As Mr. John Fallon
absolutely. He confirmed that. The reason that came up in conversation is when I went to Celtic Park to photograph their one and only jersey that they have retained from the 1960s, and it was Paddy Crerand's jersey, apparently. It must have been the 50s then, late 50s. I noticed that it had a white collar. And I was wondering if back in those days, Lawrence, when we didn't get 3 or 4 sets of kits in a season or more, did they send them up to the tailor once the collar got a wee bit kind of bedraggled, And it was the one and only John Fallon that says, no, actually, if you look at some of the team groups where that jersey's been worn, the reserve players are wearing white collars. the first team are wearing green colours, superb. There's been a lot of fans asking for this jersey to be replicated. A couple of companies have tried it, think they got the badge wrong, so we decided at ACSOM that we were going to reproduce some. You can buy them on acsom.net, so there's the plug. I'm really looking forward to getting as many of you on the show as possible, so let's have a look at some of the comments. Stephen O'Rourke, welcome back. Hello ACSOM, nice to see you. We love the ACSOM Bulletin, Lawrence. We love representing ACSOM, and on match days it's getting a wee bit more of a bounce in our step as well, because of the performances and the results. Hopefully that continues after today. Stevie boy, all right, PJD and Lawrence, you're coming in on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. We've got loads of big content coming on the channel in the next few weeks and months. Big guests that we're going to be inviting into the studio as well. So please continue to get involved. So we're looking at St Johnstone. We're looking at the form that we seem to have clicked into over the last few games. Someone was asking about the team, so I'm going to confirm that. In goals is Joe Hart, Tony Ralston at right back, with Juranovic coming back into the side at left back. Cameron, Carter, Vickers and Starfelt maintain that relationship at the centre half area of the defence. We've got McGregor and Turnbull with Jota, Rogic and Kyogo. There is a question mark over who's playing right and who's playing left, because we know that Jota and Kyogo can play both left and right. And up front, the first start for our Greek striker, Giacomakis. Now, when we're looking at that team, let's start off at the back. We were talking about the fact that Montgomery probably needed a rest, Lawrence. We've seen Juranovic playing at left back. He did so at Ibrox. Quite happy for him to come back in at left back?
Yeah, definitely. I think on Tuesday's bulletin we touched on it a bit. I think Taylor's obviously first choice left back, and Juranovic, I think, is Angie's second choice. You know, he's been out injured. Third choice probably Montgomery. And then fourth and fifth, it's Bolly and Scales, isn't it? He looks a player, Juranovic. We just need to get him a run of games, don't we? He looks really good in the ball. It's a decent penalty. We might have won a bit more during the week if he'd been on the park.
Yeah.
You know, happy with him there. Centre halves get more game together. Can only be good. Listen, Tony Ralston's, he's just doing what Tony does. He confounds everybody. He doesn't. He just keeps going and putting in performances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we spoke during the week about quite a few of the points that you've raised already there, and we were looking at the left back position, and you know the options that we've got available there. Now, someone in the comments might be able to update me on the status of Bolingoli, because he obviously dropped out during the week because he's not registered to play in the Europa League, Lawrence. But I see him as an option. I see him as a backup when Taylor is fit. I think he's our first choice at the club at the moment. We've also got Montgomery. We've also got Scales. Juranovic can switch and play there. So there's plenty of options, but I don't think we have a stick-on at left-back at the moment. If I was going to give you my first 11, there's certain players that roll off the tongue. You know Joe Hart's going to be in it. You know that McGregor's going to be in it. You know that Kyogo's going to get picked. Jota's going to get picked. But in the defence, I'm not so sure. So I'm looking at that left-back position, and Bolingoli's had a couple of games. He's not set the header alight, but he's not been that bad either. I think he's an option now at left-back. I think Taylor, of everyone that I've mentioned, other than Juranovic playing out of position, is still our first pick. But I still think this is a key area in January that we need to strengthen. Yeah,
without doubt, you know, Juranovic wasn't bought to play left-back, and he's basically a second choice left back just now because, you know, third, fourth, and fifth choice aren't up to the mark, are they? You know, Montgomery's looked good, young boy, big future ahead of him. We're not really seeing a lot of Scales in Bolingoli. I think, you know, he's of a level, isn't he? But I think he's one of those players that the club maybe be looking to move on. I think he'd be on a decent wage with us, come in for a decent amount of money, and maybe look to move it and invest in someone who is stick on left back.
Yeah.
You know, try and get somebody better than Taylor in there. Then it gives, we've got Tony and then Juranovic for right back, and I think, you know, Juranovic is going to be your first choice. But if Tony gets back to his goal scoring ways, because it's been a few games since he scored a goal, maybe he'll keep Juranovic out of that position.
I want to talk about Tony Ralston. We'll run through a few of the other selections within that team, but before I do so, welcome back to the show, Paddy Lavery, who is wearing his new ACSOM top. Let's get started. Fantastic. I'm delighted it arrived. I was asking Lawrence how long it took for his one to arrive after purchase. It was about 3 days, I think, Lawrence, after it was purchased on the site, ACSOM.net. Get on the shop. That's one way that you can support our channel. So all content goes out free, but we will be publishing books, for example. We will be creating merchandise and selling products that there is an option for you to buy should you desire. And if you do, you'll be supporting the channel. So thank you very much. Sean McAteer, yes, you do need to get one of the bad boys. Absolutely. I'm guessing that you mean the Shamrock jersey. Now, on the subject then of Juranovic, there was a conversation on yesterday's bulletin between Laura, Tony and Jim around the McGregor miss. I said after the game on the post-match that he's missed a penalty, but you couldn't be unhappy with Callum McGregor. His performances all season, but his performance on that particular afternoon was the usual standard, Lawrence. But when it comes to taking the penalties, it was at one point Lee Griffiths' job. That mantle moved on to Eddie. I always felt pretty confident with Eddie taking penalties.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Even if he was disrespectful at times by scoring them.
Yeah, with the dinks. And the other option that wasn't there on Tuesday was Juranovic. We saw him scalping a penalty in against Betis. And, you know, I don't subscribe to the fact that it needs to be a striker. I don't think it needs to be a free kick, kind of set piece specialist. If you can hit a penalty, you can hit a penalty. We've had left backs in the past who could take a good penalty. So Juranovic, for me, would be your first choice penalty kick taker. Andy Lynch took the penalties for Celtic.
Tommy Gemmell
took the penalties.
A few, didn't
He missed in the Scottish Cup final, actually. It's always Rogan, you remember.
Oh, yeah. He did,
but Dovcik missed as well, didn't he? So let's talk about Tony Ralston then. Much has been said of Anthony Ralston. His rise to prominence in this team has been well-deserved. I think we're at that stage, Lawrence, where we're kind of got over the fact that, Tony's not that good, because he clearly is. He's clearly good enough to be a Celtic player.
You can't keep putting in performances in, almost in November. So he's done very little wrong this season. We can't judge him in the previous 2 or 3 seasons where he hardly had any games for us or what he done out on loan. You've got to say, well, he's taken on board what Ange's doing.
Yeah.
He seems to have got the inverted fullback. He knows where to be going. He gives a lot of heart to the team, doesn't he?
He does.
He just tries non-stop. He's driving the other players on, which we're always going to miss a player like Brownie when he left. And Tony seems to be filling that gap a wee bit, that he's the guy that's going to drive players on. He's going to kind of push on. We're saying first names in the team sheet. He's got to be one of them, hasn't he? Because we're saying Juranovic, but if we're having to use him at left back, Tony's your right back. And even when he's fit, does Tony deserve to be dropped?
See the thing here, that might be your option at the moment. That lineup today, your 2 fullbacks, right? Yeah, albeit one of them is playing out of position. When it comes to fullback, as long as you can cut in inside, if you're stronger on your right-hand side, you can cut in. And then there isn't really an issue there. When I look at the Tony Ralston story, the first thing I've got to say is you look at his stats prior to this season, Tony. And we've said it, he's played under 4 managers over a 5-year period, and being his 5th. He had only racked up 30 appearances for Celtic. Not all starts, by the way. And sometimes there were gaps within those appearances of up to 18 months in the first team. Now, for that player who obviously had been rewarded with a contract following his performances under Brendan Rodgers in Europe, for that player, right, to have a 4 or 5 year deal, but not to be playing, to be the butt of just about every kind of joke when it came to Celtic players, but to have that mental fortitude to actually come through that, and when given his chance, to grasp it with both hands, he needs to be applauded for that first and foremost, right? Because he's never hid. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I was one of these kind of romantic Celtic fans, even probably well into last season, where I was thinking, well, of course they're trying. Of course they've got heart. Of course they want to win. But with hindsight, when you hear the comments of Jeremy Frimpong when he's left, when you see the performances of Odsonne Edouard since he's left, and Ryan Christie to a degree since Ange came in, because I wanted him to stay, you then start to wonder how many of these professional footballers can switch off, Lawrence, despite the fact that Celtic are the club paying their wages. So that thing that should be a prerequisite of playing for a professional football club, the heart, the dedication, the 100% attitude every single game, we can no longer take that as given. And I think last season proved that to me more than any other season. You can't take it as given. So when we mentioned that he's got heart and he's always 100%, I don't think that we can just sweep that one under the carpet and say, well, that's a prerequisite of any Celtic player, because it has been proven in the last 12 months that not all players have had that same determination, grit and heart that Tony Ralston's shown this season.
No, totally, but I think that's something bad about those players rather than necessarily good about Tony. I think it still remains a prerequisite. You should have it. And if you don't have it, it's something you're lacking. And it's great that Tony always shows it. You know, he doesn't fall below that standard. It's a standard that for me, has got to be the minimum. And then part of that's got to be down to the manager, you know, motivating these players and getting them that they're going to run through brick walls for them. You know, and if players are dropping off and just don't play for the manager anymore, we've seen it before, haven't we? You know, it can cost the manager his job, and it certainly puts in below par performances. I'm just wondering how you missed Encham out of that list. But then again, he's a guy we just wondered that if he ever had it.
The big thing with Encham is when your team is prepared to lose money by ripping up your contract, you know, then you know that there's an attitude problem. You know, and that's exactly what they've done with Encham, who has gone on. I mean, I've not kept a keen eye. I know that he scored a cracking goal for Swansea. I've not been watching his performances as such. But yeah, attitudinal issues have plagued Celtic over the last 12 months. And I think that Ralston has been a shining example of the absolute antithesis of that, the absolute opposite, and the kind of player that you did take for granted, I guess. And I no longer take it for granted. And I'm going to bring up a few of your points who are praising Ralston. David Crines, Ralston has been outstanding this season. He deserves his moment and is taking it. 100% agree with that. And we had a Dundee United fan on, Schema Celica.
David Crines, whose granddad John Crines, the big hand against Jimmy Johnstone to Celtic Park.
Is that right?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure David will confirm that.
You're honestly, sometimes your knowledge absolutely astounds me, Lawrence. But yes, if that is right, let us know, David. Great wee bit of statistics and trivia from Lawrence. Joe Porter, Ralston Dino. Yeah, I think we could rename him that. Marco Van Ralston, iGolf J Tweetler. Keep him coming, because I think he deserves this kind of praise. Stevie Boy comes back and Ralston would walk into any team going by his performances this season. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was easy for us to say he went to Dundee United and it didn't work. He went to St Johnstone, it didn't work. But then we had a Dundee United fan in a couple of weeks back, Lawrence. He was being interviewed by Kevin Graham, Johnny Proctor on Schema Celica. Give it a watch, great interview. And he was talking about Ralston playing really, really well for Dundee United. So, you know, he's probably always had it in his locker, but he's never really been given a fair crack at the whip, has he?
Well, we touched the illnesses, I think, when it got to 6 games. It was is this his biggest run? It is getting a run in the team sometimes, just getting settled, playing with other players that you know who's in front of you, you know, who else is in defence with you. You've touched on it, just the mental fortitude that boy's shown to come through everything. Because, listen, he's a Celtic fan, he's going to know what's going on out there, all the criticisms, all the jokes. But, you know, he's been strong enough to stand up to it and keep going and keep trying. And, you know, you don't get a lot of goal-scoring fullbacks. You know, Tony's, I think he's been one of the standouts. There's no two ways about it, is it?
No. And long may it continue, by the way, Lawrence. Ben Clifford comes in to bring us right bang up to date with Encham's form at Swansea, and apparently he is currently warming the bench and used as an impact sub. Get used to it down there, because some of the fans were absolutely raving about him after his first couple of games, but they will probably see the real Olivier Encham, a guy who technically is undoubtedly gifted, but his application and his attitude, well, I feel ultimately hold him back. And I mean, there's a player who came from Manchester City, the academy at Man City. He comes to Celtic, and you know, there's a proposed move to Marseille. He goes on loan there, and I can just see his career. You know, he's going to turn into a journeyman, and you know, that's not down to his ability. Lawrence will always have Rome. That's all we can say. CCV and Starfelt centre-half partnership. Now, again, not going to be negative. Absolutely not. I think there was a wee bit of fatigue, absolutely, in the last 5-10 minutes of the game. Starfelt made a wee mistake. Cameron Carter-Vickers did likewise. But I think in terms of the partnership they're building there, it's getting better and better week on week, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely giving the team a solid base to work from. Starfelt, it looks like it's going to be a left centre back until we buy an actual left centre back. Carter-Vickers, will he hold that place down when Julian comes back? It'll be interesting to see.
But that's the question. That is the question. I mean, we don't know what level Julian's coming back in at. Is it going to be the same level? I don't mean fitness. Is he going to be the same player that got injured against Dundee United back in November, I think it was? Is he going to be the same standard, Lawrence? If he is, what do we do? Because, again, it's a nice dilemma for the gaffer to have.
Aye, and you've got Stephen Welsh, who didn't do a lot wrong, who must be desperate for his chance again to come into the team. But I think Ange's probably glad that he's just getting a settled base, that there's confidence growing. When Julian comes back, he's going to be warming the bench for a bit and maybe come on for 10 or 20 minutes to get him up to speed, isn't he? Or waiting for an injury.
You don't want to rush him. Absolutely. Yeah. You see wee Jamesy, he comes in after a lengthy layoff and, he's injured again. Mickey Johnstone. We've seen it with players at Celtic in the recent past, Lawrence. You don't want to rush them back. I mean, if it's taken 10 months, what does an extra month? Especially when you look at the centre-half partnership there, he doesn't have to be rushed back. And you do have Welsh, who I'm a big fan of. I wouldn't drop anyone in that defence at the moment for him, but I think he's an able backup at this moment in time.
No, definitely. He's another boy he's come through the ranks, which we all want to see, isn't it? He's got that commitment and that desire to play for Celtic, that he's going to give 100% every game. So, listen, I'm not worried about Welsh being back up and waiting for his chance. But, yeah, when Julian comes back, it is a question of what level and how we get him to the level he was at or to his best. Hopefully, Anton in the sports, is it head of sports science he is now? He's come in at, and I know he's got the supplements gig. Hopefully, he's going to bring that, I suppose, injury management and fitness management to the fore again, because we were without somebody doing that. And maybe that's why we're bringing players back too early and
possibly
them and picking up injuries again.
Yeah, and also the impact of a completely new style of training and intensity of training seems to have undone us a wee bit. I mean, the injury list was unbelievable there for a spell, and hopefully people are now kind of adapting and acclimatising almost to that intensity of training, Lawrence, so that we don't have the same level of injury list as we have done up until now. One frustration for me, I'm looking at this, and we will run through the rest of the team. I'm looking at the team that we're putting out today, and there could have been one or two amendments, because obviously there has been a couple of changes. Abada's dropped out, for example. But you're looking at that side, and the biggest frustration for me, and looking at Tuesday as well, the way we managed that game, had we been prepared, had we been properly prepared for those ties, that tie against Midfield, those two games, we had the beating of them. If you look at the side that we've got. But, and it's not even with hindsight, Lawrence, we knew that in 2 or 3 months after that game, we'd be in a position where we could, go toe-to-toe and actually beat that side. And the frustration for me is that we know when the fixture is every single year, yet we're always at that situation where we're ready 3 months after the horse is bolted.
Yeah, it seems to be in our transfer policy, bring them in at the last minute. I mean, look, we'll get James McCarthy. Hopefully, we'll get him up to speed soon. Outstanding player. But again, he was brought in so late that, I think he's got 1 assist so far. We'd want a bigger impact off him, wouldn't we? And hopefully, I know, obviously Dom moved on and Michael's now in charge. Hopefully, whoever's running recruitment, because we don't have a head of recruitment, has got plans already laid for the January transfer window. Whether it's left back or whoever else, wherever else Ange's identified it needs strengthened. We're already doing the work just now, because it seemed that it was season after season. We'll leave it to the last minute. I know we've got a Champions League qualifier, but what's a Champions League qualifier?
What's £40 million, Lawrence?
Exactly.
Exactly. And
not when we can save a couple of 100,000 by buying on the last day.
It's frustrating. I mean, the point on McCarthy, if he's been on one of these recruitment lists that we've actually seen in the flesh, then get him in for a pre-season. Get him up to speed. I mean, we're now at a situation where he's obviously broken down. The fitness isn't there at the moment. Facebook, brilliant. Thank you for getting involved. Unfortunately, I don't know who it is that's made the comment, but if you do a wee registration process, your avatar and name will pop up. And said we would be lucky to see Big Jules before December. We were told before that it was after the international break, and it's always next week, next month, and it's the longer it gets. But if it's December, it means he's been out for over a year. He's lost over a year of his career to that collision with the post.
That game was won. Even if Dundee United scored that one, that's the sickening thing about it, isn't it? You're kind of going, the game was done, it's dying embers of the game, and
we were starting to show a wee bit of form at that point as well, Lawrence.
I think we're back on the Lenny bus at that point.
That was, I don't know if I was on the bus. I think I was on a skateboard holding onto the back of it. But the DJ of choice comes in, and it's a good point, because actually these two jerseys behind me are resplendent in green and white, but the camera is not doing them justice, Lawrence, and you can see that because you can see them to the naked eye. The camera's not doing the colours justice. So get onto ACSOM.net if you want to see them in all their glory. Wee Kelvin has some great pictures up there. The Tony Ralston names are still coming in. Anthony Rastaldini. I'll go with that. Maldini, one of the best players I've ever seen. Moving into the midfield, Callum McGregor, David Turnbull, and Tommy Rogic. This was the trio that somehow couldn't play together. We were hearing that Turnbull and Rogic couldn't start a game together. It looks as though this is what Ange is going to stick with, and it looks as though it's probably our best option when you look at the players we've got.
Well, I don't know. I thought Beaton's done a good job when he's come in. If we could get McCarthy fit, Turnbull against Motherwell scores a cracker. I'm not too sure he done too much more the rest of the game, and our second goal, we got a bit of fortune there. He had a fresh air kick, a tap-in, didn't he? So, for me, the midfield still needs a wee bit of work on it. I don't think it is clicking right. It's getting better game in game, so maybe that's what it needs. Maybe I'm just saying, well, look, he's got a process, isn't he? He says trust the process. Jared's told us trust the process, so maybe it just needs game time. But I thought Turnbull was really fortunate. On Tuesday afternoon, his fresh air kick didn't end up, costing us that second goal.
The trust the process thing, I thought that was going to be this year's keep the faith. Every time I heard it, I just thought, right, I'm getting told to trust the process, but I'm not seeing it. You're always going to have to hold your hands up if you're wrong about these things, Lawrence. At no point have I written off Ange, but there was a point there where we had won half our league games and you're sitting in sixth position and you're saying he's got to adapt, he's got to change. I think there has been a level of adaptation. I really do. I don't think that we're sticking rigidly to the inverted fullbacks, for example.
I think some of the change has been allowed by now getting a full squad back to fitness, and maybe it's that the guys now understanding the positioning and what he's wanting them to do more often. Understanding where he wants them to be and being able to make in-game adaptations. Because Andy's comments is, I don't think he's ever said that, I'll stick to something other than his philosophy of football.
Yeah.
I think he's willing to be pragmatic as well and manage games. We've touched on it, was a bit of game management. Well, that was because he has options now.
What was it he said? If you're vegetarian, you didn't nip into Macca's. Is that what he called it? Macca's?
Listen, I told it's not.
I'm sure there's a vegetarian selection, is there not, in Macca's?
There could be, but I'm just don't want to be nipping into Macca's full stop. Yeah. I'd rather have a chewy steak rather than nip into Macca's.
Oh, Lawrence, it's all, at the end of the day, when it comes to vegetarianism, I jumped on that wagon about 2 years ago now, and I'd recommend it, actually. I haven't quite managed to go vegan, but vegetarian was pretty easy, I thought. Jota and Kyogo, who plays where? That's the question. I'm guessing that we're playing Giakoumakis through the middle. They can revert, they can switch left and right. I would rather Kyogo was through the middle. He's not going to play two up front. He's going to play with his two wingers. He said this, he likes playing with his wide men. But if they can get the balls in and in particular, Jota has been playing a lot of great balls into the middle, and you've actually got someone to target in Giakoumakis, then that's a completely different dimension. We don't see that. Kyogo's not a target man in that respect.
Well, definitely. I mean, there was one game, I think, with something 30 odd crosses. We're going, well, who are we crossing it to? You know, because we don't have anyone that's prolific in the air. I know Abad has picked up a few. Obviously, when he comes in back post off the right wing, you know, when Jota's been put in, he's picked up a couple of goals. Kyogo looked all right, but out the right, he looked better on the right than he has on the left. As you say, they can switch, but Giakoumakis, he had a couple of cracking touches. You know, he looks as if he's going to be a handful. He looks like he could be a target man for us. I'd expect him to get plenty of service, but I'd expect Kyogo on the right and Jota on the left.
Well, I like the positivity that's running through the comment section today. D. Kelleher reckons that Giakoumakis will get a hat-trick today. Let's hope he does. Let's go to the action. Lawrence Conley at Celtic versus St Johnstone. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. There is an air of positivity. Will we still have that at half-time? Let's hope so. Join Lawrence and I at half-time, and thank you for joining us once again on A Celtic State of Mind.